Last summer, I volunteered as a leader for a camping vacation for kids with smaller disabilities. A lot of them had strong forms of ADHD. 2 girls were deaf-mute, and several kids were mentally challenged, but not too bad. The camp and the tents were set up on a beautiful clearing in an uninhabited valley in the mountains. A creek ran through the meadow and the weather was incredible. The camp started on Sunday, but I was busy with something else, so I joined them on Monday. Other staff members told me that some of the kids couldn't get a lot of sleep in the night because a noise kept waking them up. It wasn't really a loud noise, but it cut through the silence of the night like a hot knife through butter. In accordance with other leaders of the camp, it was probably someone chopping wood far, far away. It was weird, but nobody really cared. The first full day in camp was fun and filled with a lot of sports and games. In the night, from Monday to Tuesday, the noise was much closer. Some of the staff members were woken up by the weeping of the younger kids. They were scared by the noise, or homesick, or both. The noise then stopped, and I helped to put the kids back to sleep as I returned to the kitchen to finish doing dishes. Then, the night from Tuesday to Wednesday came. The noise started shortly after midnight, when the last of the staff members had gone to bed. It was really close now, and it seemed to move around the clearing. I wasn't scared, but others sure were. After 30 minutes, suddenly silence. At 2 a.m., the whole camp was woken up by a chill bump-inducing scream. Everyone got up, and the camp suddenly was a chaos filled with flashlights, calls, and screams. Soon we found the source of the horrible scream. The whole clearing fell into a state of a shocked numbness. The scene was beyond description, and I will never be able to forget it. On the toilet seat of the opened outhouse sat the bottom half of a little girl's body. The body was obviously violently chopped apart right over the hip. Placed on her lap was her head, staring right at us with open eyes. It was one of the deaf-mute girls. The upper half of the body wasn't inside the outhouse, it was laying outside. The bowel was nailed to the blood-painted walls of the outhouse like garland. The empty upper half of the body smashed on the ground. And the spine was ripped out, and the thicker part of the spine was crammed into the mouth of the girl's head like a long, bony tongue of a snake. The arms were nowhere. The 2 deaf-mute girls slept together in a tent. As we arrived at the place, we saw the side of the tent cut open, and the other girl was still in the tent. A wooden plug was hammered through her body into the ground. The arms of the other girl were sewn to her naked body right under her own arms. The police searched the valley and mountains around the clearing with dogs and helicopters, but the area was huge and unclear, so they gave up after a few days. As I expected, they never found the murderer nor the weapon. I still remember the exact day it happened. Tuesday, 5th week of camp. The hottest day of that summer, and just before the 4th of July. That week was known as Rich Week to the counselors, since many of the wealthier parents took off for the holiday and left their children behind. It came right after the Orphan Week, which was when the Clarkstown Orphanage, largest in the state, traveled to camp free of charge because the camp was government-owned. Yearly, the local residents came by at the end of the week and children were often adopted. Just last week, a girl in my class had found a new home with some farmers a few miles out, and I remember seeing Ellie wave from the cab of a pickup truck as she started her new life in the country. As swim instructor, in my time off, I helped the sail instructors patch sails under the water sports canopy. Logan, the head of water sports and about 5 years older than me, sat across from me at the picnic tables, his small eyes looking over the lake. Logan kept his hair in a tight buzz cut, revealing a scar around the back of his head, and when he spoke, it was in a deep drawl. "Mike, watch what you're doing," he growled, noticing I had skipped a stitch. "I've only got 2 eyes and there's too much going on for me to watch everyone today." "Got it," I said. and put my head down. Logan kept a tight watch on his crew, but now his focus was on the lake. Ed and Ted, two twin counselors with one brain between them, were teaching a beginner swimming course. Ed and Ted always made Logan uneasy, and had earned a spot of first and second on his mental list of instructors who were the most likely to screw up next. So when Ed, the smarter of the two, came sprinting up from the lakeside so fast his long legs spewed a dirt exhaust behind him, Logan was ready. Ed opened his mouth, words wheezing in between each intake of breath, and his wet hair plastered over one eye. "We're missing one camper. I can't find him in the water. Friends don't know where he is." Without hesitation, Logan's whistle shrieked through the campground, startling campers and counselors alike. "Out of the water, all lifeguards to the dock," he shouted, his deep chest working like a bellow as adrenaline shot through me and we ran to the water. As a lifeguard, it was our responsibility to search for the body, and 15 of us lined up in one end of the swimming section. At Logan's call, we dove, myself in the deeper end of 14 feet, and spread out across the bottom. The water filtered sunlight and heat, so the bottom was cold and dark, with underwater plants that gripped against my calves and pulled me back as I swam. After 3 strokes, I returned to the surface, and Logan sent us back down again to search, hoping to find a still warm form. I was the one who found the body. Its hand brushed against my face, a pale palm that was all too white. I saw the face next, too dark to recognize, but a girl with long hair that fanned around her like she was under static electricity. I gasped, involuntarily drawing in water to my lungs, gripped her torso and began swimming to the surface. She felt swollen, her arms too big, and her temperature a cold I will never forget. Halfway to the surface, I felt her leg catch on something, and she was pulled back down out of my grip. I turned, watching her open eyes on mine as she descended, but my lungs screamed and I knew I needed air or I would join her down below for much longer than intended. "I found her!" I shouted, breaking the surface, and I dove back down, my hands sweeping through the muddy bottom. But I found nothing but muck and empty water, even as the other lifeguards joined. 5 minutes later, and Logan's whistle rang out again, calling us to the dock. "The camper has been found," he announced, in a restroom by his site. Ed and Ted must have let him slip past them, and both of them will spend this night scrubbing the dock with their own toothbrushes. He paused, and I felt the other lifeguard's gaze fall on me. "You are all free to go, except for Mike. I want a word." The others trudged away, looking back at us over their shoulder. Logan focused on me, spittle meshing with his words as he hissed, "I don't know what the hell that was about, Mike, but you could have cost us a life with your false call back there. And next time you try something like this, I'll take yours." "But I saw something," I insisted. "I don't believe in ghosts, Mike, and we scoured that water. Now get out of my sight. You're off waterfront." He left, and word spread around camp about what had happened. I could tell many of them detested me, and none believed what had happened. So I quit the next week and tried to push the memory of what happened out of my mind. That was 20 years ago, and today I hold the newspaper, the top article, calling back my memories. Murders at summer camp. 19 skeletons had been discovered in the lake of the camp. Several aged at over 30 years since time of death, and none younger than 10. Due to renovations, the lake was drained, revealing a collection of bones at the deepest region. Several femurs were found attached to anchors with rope, and after much investigation, the state police discovered the source of the bodies. 10 years ago, before Clarkstown Orphanage was shut down for embezzling state funds, each summer, their orphans spent a week at the camp. 19 were thought to be adopted by locals in nearby proximity to the camp, but after reviewing records, police discovered these adoptions were never documented. All 19 were drowned and disposed of in the lake, at an area too deep for the campers to normally enter, except for the one that drifted near the swimming area due to an insecure rope. It is believed that the orphanage collected funds appropriated for these children long after their death. This story is from the point of view of a female. On the first night, 3 girls were raped, murdered, and left for the counselors to find the next morning, piled like dirty laundry on the trail with a silly name because whoever left them there knew someone would be along sooner or later to take a shower. 3 little girls in their sleeping bags, excited for the start of summer camp, just as excited as I was. Hell, I may as well have been one of those little girls in tent number 7. They call it tent number 8, but that's stupid, because we all know no one counted the counselor's tent. I was in tent number 6 with 3 other girls, or tent 7 if you read the reports. Whatever. Does the number matter? I get this cold metal taste at the back of my throat when I think about how much it really might have mattered. We were all in the same group, the Kiowa group, our tents in a tight little cluster. It made it easy for him, I guess. Tiny little tents with tiny little girls inside. June 1977, tent number 6. That's where I was, until I heard the noise outside. I awoke, clutching the stuffed animal I had tried so hard to hide from the older girls because they had laughed and said toys were for babies. Mr. Beans wasn't for babies, he was a friend. But I didn't have many friends that weren't stuffed animals, so I kept him hidden in case the older girls came back. And maybe they had, was what I thought. The rustling sounds outside the tent sounded like someone was there. And my first thought was the older girls from the Arapaho group, girls who were allowed to wear lip gloss and talked about boys and just seemed so cool, like the ladies on the covers of magazines. They had teased me earlier at dinner that night, especially about Mr. Beans. But for one terrible, hopeful moment, I thought maybe they were testing me, to see if I was tough enough to be their friend, to prove I wasn't a baby. Mom said sometimes that people teased because they liked you. I wanted them to like me. I didn't wake up the other girls because I knew they would ruin the whole thing. They would probably cry and be babies, and then the older girls from Arapaho wouldn't be my friends. I even put Mr. Beans behind my suitcase so they wouldn't see him. I waited, but nothing happened. More rustles. That was all. The tent flap opened. I looked for the faces of my new friends, but it was a man. Not any of the counselors, someone I'd never seen before. This realization set in like a heavy stone sinking to the bottom of a black pond. His eyes scanned the tent. His eyes counted 1, 2, 3, 4 little girls. His eyes stopped on me, the 4th little girl, and his eyes met mine. He smiled. It was not a very nice smile. He put one finger up to his lips, pursed them, and said, "Shh." I nodded because he was a grown-up, and Mom taught me to listen to grown-ups. He ducked out and closed the tent flap again. It was late at night or early in the morning. I'm not sure which, but it was so dark it seemed like such a long time to lay there awake before I heard someone moaning in the distance. It was quiet, but not that far away. I'm told that other girls heard it too, but from 4 different areas of the camp at once. Some girls made up stories afterwards to get attention, but not me. I never told anyone, not until now. When the light finally started to break, I realized how badly I needed to pee. I wasn't sure if the man was still outside, but it was probably okay because it was morning, and the sun was coming up over the horizon, so I poked my head out of the tent, looked around. The sky was that pale white-blue color it turns just at dawn, but it still felt safe. Somehow better because the sun had risen, and everything was okay. I headed down the trail with the funny name, towards the showers and the toilets, and that's where I saw them. At the base of a tree, slumped together like strange piles of garbage, were 3 little girls. I knew their names. I still know their names, but that doesn't matter now. 2 of them were in their sleeping bags. One was just on the ground. She had her pajama top pushed up, no pajama bottoms. A strange red flashlight near their feet. There was blood. They weren't moving. I can see them. I can still see them. I don't know why, but I went right past them. I guess I knew if I went back to my tent, I'd wet the bed, and I'd never have any big girl friends, so I went right past the little sleeping bags and straight to the bathroom. I used the bathroom, and I went back to tent number 6. Tent number 7 was empty. When I went back to sleep, the last sleep I ever had unbroken by nightmares or screaming, I think I had convinced myself the whole thing was a bad dream. There was no man, no pile of sleeping bags with dead little girls in them, no empty tent number 7. The counselors got us up earlier than usual. We went to the Great Hall for breakfast. We went canoeing in the river. It was fun, everything was okay. Buses came to take us back to the Great Hall. When we got off the buses, one of the older counselors, the ones that ran the camp, told us there was a problem with the water supply. Camp was canceled for the summer. We all needed to pack our things and go home. In tent number 6, the other girls whined about how it was unfair. They'd sold so many cookies to get here this year, and after one stupid day, it was already over. But I kept hearing the gray-faced counselor's words in my ears. Camp is canceled. I tried to nap on the bus ride home, but my seatmate kept waking me up because I was crying in my sleep. She called me a baby. The bus stopped and I got off. The troop leader said not to talk to anyone who wasn't our parents. There were lots of news people and shouting. Mom grabbed me and cried. "No more camp," she said. She threw out my sleeping bag as soon as we got home. The police came once or twice after that, but I never talked to them. Mom told them I'd been very clear I hadn't seen anything. I'd slept all night. I haven't slept a full night since. Would it have helped if I had said something? If I had told? Every time I thought about doing it, my heart plummeted into my stomach. I saw the man's face and his finger on his lips and heard his shh. So these words, the words I never said until now, they festered inside me like some exotic form of mental rot. I can't hold a job for more than a few months. I call in sick too much. No husband to speak of. The night terrors took care of that. A man will only sleep in your bed so many times before the screaming and thrashing drives him away. But my new therapist has been so nice. He tells me whatever happened isn't my fault and that this will help. And I started to think that maybe it was time to tell. Time to describe the face that poked into tent number 6 that night in 1977. Hey guys, hope everyone is great. If you'd like more information about the last story, there are links in the description that you can check out. Thanks again to Lilac for the thumbnail art. And as always, if you enjoyed the video, be sure to hit like, and if you haven't done so, be sure to hit subscribe. Thanks for watching guys. Sleep well.